Before we start, just a quick reminder to hit that subscribe button. Only 2% are subscribed at 1,000 subscribers. I'll be posting a special video. Her phone buzzed on the counter while my hand was in the sink. I reached over to move it and the screen lit up. My name is Daniel. I was 40 years old that night and stupidly calm. I was not supposed to see anything important, just a normal buzz. Instead, I saw a heart emoji and a hotel room number glowing up at me. For a second, my brain tried to blur the words on the screen. You know that feeling when your eyes see it but your head pushes back? My fingers hovered over the phone, wet and shaking over the glass. I read the preview again, slower this time, like maybe I misread. It was still there, that neat little heart, and the room written right after. I wish I could say I set the phone down and walked away. I did not do that. I stabbed the notification with my thumb. The whole message opened and my stomach did this slow, ugly turn. Same room as last time, and another heart waited in the thread. I knew exactly what that sounded like, even if I did not want to. There was a name above the message that I did not recognize. No last name, just a first name that meant nothing to me then. The earlier text stacked above like bricks I did not want to touch. I scrolled anyway because of course I did, because I am not a saint. Every line I read felt like a step towards some edge I could not see. Behind me, the TV was spilling some show she liked, way too cheerful. My wife laughed at something, sharp and bright, from the living room. The sound did not match what I was reading. It made everything worse. One message joked about her sneaking out again, like this was a game. Another said he missed her already and thanked her for last time. I was not proud of what I did next. I went hunting for excuses. Maybe this was a stupid joke, maybe it was some idiotic group dare. My brain threw out every soft possibility it could grab in that moment. Coworker, I told myself, maybe they all stayed for a conference once. Even then my chest knew I was lying. There was no neutral way to read that. Babe, did you turn the stove off? Her voice floated in from the couch. I locked the screen so fast my thumb hurt and my heart slammed hard. Yeah, I got it, I answered, and my voice sounded normal and fake. I set the phone back exactly where it had buzzed, like a crime scene. For a second I just watched it, waiting for it to light up again. I dried my hands on my shirt, not even noticing the wet patch. I walked into the living room, and she looked over with this easy smile. You ever look at someone and feel like your whole memory glitches? That happened right there, like my history with her broke in half. I sat down on the edge of the couch and I could not sit back. What are you doing in there forever? She asked, eyes back on the show. Just cleaning up, I said, which was technically not total fiction. I studied her face, trying to see some sign, some mark of guilt. Nothing showed. She looked relaxed and bored and exactly like usual. That normal look made everything worse, because then I felt crazy. I know now I should have asked right then, straight and simple. At the time I felt this weird mix of anger and politeness choking me. I did not want to blow up if there was some explanation I missed. I also did not want to sound paranoid over one message, even that one. So I sat there and watched the show move on while my brain did not. After a minute, I could not stand the noise from the TV anymore. I am finishing dinner, I said, and I stood up way too fast. She glanced over, raised one eyebrow, then turned back to the screen. No guilt, no flinch, nothing at all that helped me breathe. That blank reaction dug in like a splinter, small but impossible to ignore. Back in the kitchen, I opened a cabinet that did not need opening. I just needed some movement, any task, because standing still hurt. My mind kept replaying the phrase, same room as last time, like a loop. I tried to count slow breaths and lost track after 3 every time. Every second I expected the phone to buzz again with something worse. I picked it up a second time, which already tells you where my head was. No new messages, just the lock screen and our usual family photo. Seeing that image under my thumb almost made me drop the phone. The contrast between that picture and what I had read felt brutal. I set the phone down again, harder this time, like that proved something. Do you want me to set the table? Her voice called from down the hall. Yeah, in a minute, I answered, and I hated how steady I sounded. I was already building a plan, without admitting that to myself yet. First step, wait for her to pick up the phone and watch her face. I wanted that first honest reaction, not some polished story. I carried the food out, not really tasting or smelling anything. She grabbed her phone before touching the plate like always. Her thumb swiped, her eyes scanned, and there was the slightest pause. Not huge, not dramatic, but long enough to punch straight through me. She locked the screen fast and flipped the phone face down on the table. "Everything okay?" I asked, and my voice came out lighter than I felt. "Work crap," she said, rolling her eyes in this annoyed little way. That answer was ready, too ready, like she had it on standby all night. She took a bite, chewed slow, clearly waiting to see if I pushed. In that silence, I realized this was not the first time she used that line. "I wish I could tell you," I confronted her right then across the plates. Instead, I nodded, tried to swallow food that felt like dry paper. I told myself I needed more than one message and one weird pause. I also told myself I might be overreacting, which sounds insane now. Back then, the idea of being wrong felt almost as terrifying as being right. Our forks scraped the plates and every tiny sound hit my nerves. I watched her fingers, the way she kept nudging the phone closer. She laughed at some story she was telling, but her eyes kept drifting down. It looked casual if you did not know, I knew, so it did not. I started counting how many times she checked the screen, just to stay sane. Looking back, that dinner was the last calm moment we ever had. At the time, it just felt tight and strange, like the air got heavier. I did not know yet how deep the lies went or who was involved. I just knew something had shifted, like a door opened behind my back. I could feel the cold from that doorway even while she smiled at me. Her fork scraped the plate and I almost jumped. I was stacking dishes from the table when Emily walked in. She moved fast, shoulders tight, eyes fixed on anything but me. Kids usually wander through the kitchen, she looked like she wanted out. That alone put my nerves right back on high. "You done?" I held out my hand for her plate. "Yeah," she shoved it over, fingers slipping against the edge. She usually joked, complained something. That night she barely breathed. Her gaze flicked toward the counter where the device had buzzed earlier. I watched that glance and felt my stomach knot again. "You okay?" I asked, trying to keep my tone casual. "Fine," she rubbed her thumb across a stain that was not there. Her voice came out thin, like it belonged to someone older. There was a pause where she almost met my eyes, then backed off. That tiny flinch hit me harder than any argument. From the living room, my wife called out about dessert. Her voice sounded light, almost playful, way too smooth for the situation. Emily jerked at the sound, then froze like she remembered something. "That thing earlier," I said, leaning my hip against the counter. "You see anything pop up on her screen before dinner?" Her head snapped up so fast I knew I hit something. "What?" She blinked, then forced a shrug that looked painful. I was in my room, her nails scratched against her forearm. I had not mentioned when it happened, she answered like she knew. That mismatch sat there between us, buzzing louder than the device. "You sure?" I lowered my voice, kept it slow and steady. "I mean, you walk through here all the time, you notice stuff." "Why are you asking me?" She stepped back, bumping the cabinet. There it was, that fear I had not seen on her before. Not kid fear of trouble, grown-up fear of getting cornered. My wife walked in then, carrying 2 bowls, smiling like nothing shifted. "You two plotting against me in here?" She set them down with a laugh. Emily jumped again, then forced a small sound that could pass as one. The device lay on the counter behind her, dark and quiet. I felt all 3 of us glance at it without moving our heads. "Em, grab your spoon and come watch this with me." My wife brushed past her, fingers briefly touching her shoulder. That small contact looked more like a warning than affection. Emily nodded too fast, eyes wide, cheeks drained of any color. I watched her swallow and knew she was caught in something. Another vibration rattled against the counter near my elbow. No one reached for it, that told me plenty right there. My wife kept her back turned, stirring her dessert slowly, almost rehearsed. Emily stared straight ahead at the doorway, shoulders locked in place. Pretending not to hear, it made the sound twice as loud. "You gonna get that?" I kept my stare on my wife. In a minute, she licked the spoon, way too focused on it. Now Emily was the one watching her, mouth pressed into a line. If you have ever seen someone monitor a lie, you know that look. She already knew what that message would be about. "I'm gonna take my bowl upstairs," Emily blurted. She snatched one and headed for the exit without waiting. "We eat together," I answered, sharper than I planned. She halted, back still to us, fingers tightening around the bowl. That pause stretched long enough for my doubt to almost dissolve. "I have a quiz tomorrow," she tossed over her shoulder. "Need to study, oh. Or I'm screwed," she forced a weak laugh. Tests never bothered her, and we all knew that. She did not turn around, not once, which told its own story. I knew she wanted distance from whatever sat on that counter. "Let her study," my wife cut in with a quick grin. "She's been stressed all week," her eyes flicked toward me then away. Again with the prepared line, just packaged for a different audience. Emily took that opening fast and slipped down the hall. Her steps were too fast for someone just thinking about homework. I stood there listening to the faint noise upstairs. A door closed, not slammed, just pushed carefully until the latch caught. That careful close bothered me more than a full teenage meltdown. If she had blown up, at least it would have felt honest. This quiet felt like a decision, like she picked a side. My wife finally snatched the device and checked the new alert. Her face went blank for a second, then neutral again, too controlled. She cleared the notification in one swipe, no hesitation at all. "Are we done interrogating the kid now?" She leaned against the counter. She said it lightly, but her eyes were sharp on mine. I asked one question. I set my plate down harder than needed. "You two are jumpy for no reason." That came out more bitter than planned. She laughed once, short and humorless, then headed back to the couch. "Grow up," she threw over her shoulder like I was the dramatic one. That line stayed stuck in my head long after she sat down. I stayed in the kitchen, listening to the show start up again. Every few minutes my mind drifted upstairs toward Emily's door. I argued with myself about going up there, about pushing harder. Part of me wanted to rip the truth out right then. Another part was scared of what I would hear if she cracked. Eventually I walked up, each step louder than it needed to be. Her music played just enough to signal "do not knock." I tapped anyway, knuckles soft against the wood, heart pounding hard. "Yeah," her voice sounded strained, like she had been holding her breath. That sound alone told me she had been expecting this visit. "Can we talk for a minute?" I rested my hand on the frame. A shuffle inside, then the lock clicked, then a narrow gap opened. Her eyes peeked through, red at the edges, trying to look normal. "What's up?" She blocked the space like I was some salesman. That hurt more than I want to admit even now. "I'm not mad at you," I started, which was half true. "I just want to know if something is going on with her." The word "her" hung between us, heavy but still vague enough. Emily's gaze dropped to the floor, then bounced back up fast. "She's fine," came out rushed, like she was denying it on reflex. "You seemed scared downstairs when I mentioned her messages." The word slipped out before I could soften it or hide it. She flinched at messages like it was a slap across the hallway. "I don't look at her stuff." The lie was clumsy and late. Her fingers twisted the edge of the door, knuckles going pale. "Look at me for a second." My voice dropped without me planning it. When she finally lifted her eyes, there was full panic there. Not fear of me, fear of betraying someone else by blinking wrong. I recognized that loyalty and it hit me right in the gut. She had already chosen who she was protecting. "Did she ask you to cover for her?" The question came out quiet, almost gentle, which surprised even me. Emily's lips parted like she might tell me everything at once. Then something behind her eyes hardened, like a switch flipped. "I'm not talking about her with you," she whispered, then pulled back. The door moved a few inches before I could react. "I'm on your side," I tried, and I meant it in that moment. "No, you're not." That cut through the gap fast and sharp. Then the door closed again, not slammed, but firm enough to sting. That answer echoed longer than any argument we ever had. I stood there staring at the wood, feeling ridiculous and shut out. Downstairs the laugh track from the show rose and fell, bright and fake. Up here my hands shook while I tried to decide my next move. Push harder and risk breaking her trust, back off and stay blind. Either choice felt wrong, and I picked the quieter mistake. I turned away and walked back down, every step heavier than before. In that moment, I told myself she was just scared of conflict. I told myself this was a temporary thing, a weird, awkward night. What I did not admit was the truth sitting right in front of me. My family had already split into sides, and I was the last to notice. The next morning, I opened our phone account before work. My hands were steady on the keyboard, my chest was not. I knew this crossed a line, I also knew I would do it anyway. The call history loaded, and I felt that same heavy pressure return. There it was, a number I did not recognize, repeating over and over. Late evening twice a week, always when she said she was exhausted. Long calls, not quick ones, the kind where you settle in and relax. Every entry stared back at me like a tiny challenge. I copied the number into a search bar just to feel less helpless. A rideshare company popped up and my mouth went dry. I dug into the bank app with that same ugly determination. There were rides at night, short trips across town, nothing huge. The charges lined up with the days that number appeared on our bill. I checked the destinations listed, the same hotel name kept appearing. Seeing it written down like that made everything feel official and poisonous. I wish I could say I closed the laptop and walked away. Instead, I zoomed in on every transaction like that would change them. There were food charges near the same place, time stamped after the rides. Not massive amounts, just enough for two people eating quietly somewhere. I stared so long my eyes hurt, but the numbers stayed the same. "Why are you still here?" her voice floated from the hallway. I slammed the laptop shut, almost hard enough to crack it. "Running late reports," I muttered, turning the screen away from her. She walked into the kitchen, already scrolling on her phone again. I watched her thumb flick down, hunting for a fresh notification. "You working late again tonight?" I kept my tone light and curious. She shrugged, eyes still locked on whatever she was reading. "Probably," she answered, like it was nothing worth discussing. "Big project, no one knows what they're doing without me." My jaw tightened because I knew exactly who no one might be. "You getting overtime for all that loyalty?" I reached for a mug. "If you are gone that much, it better show up on paper." She finally glanced up, one eyebrow raised, mouth pulling tight. "Why are you suddenly my accountant?" She crossed her arms slowly. That question sounded rehearsed, like she had practiced it somewhere else. I took a breath, tried to sound calm, tried not to shake. "Because I like knowing where we stand," I answered, eyes on her face. "I like knowing you are actually at the place you claim." Her expression snapped colder at that last part, fast and sharp. "There it is," she said, like she caught me doing something dirty. "There what is?" I leaned against the counter to keep my balance. "You snooping, you acting paranoid, you building stories in your head." She stepped closer, chin tipped up, like she was ready for a fight. "I work, I come home, that's all that happens," she continued. The confidence in her voice almost made me question my own evidence. "Then you won't mind showing me your calendar," I pushed. The words left my mouth before I decided if that was smart. Her fingers tightened around her phone until her knuckles stood out. "Absolutely not," she laughed short and mean like I cracked a joke. "You want to track me now, is that the plan?" I knew I was losing that round the second she said track. Suddenly I was the controlling husband, not the guy checking facts. She spun away from me, grabbed her bag, already done with the discussion. "You need to get your head straight before you talk to me again." The worst part was how practiced that dismissal sounded, smooth and polished. As she headed for the door, Emily stepped out of her room. She stopped when she saw us, eyes moving from me to her mother. "Everything good?" Her voice was flat but her shoulders were high. "Fine," my wife answered, a little too quickly for comfort. Their eyes locked for a second, and something silent passed between them. In that brief look, I saw more than in our whole argument. It was not surprise on Emily's face, it was caution. Like they already had a script, and I had missed the rehearsal. I watched her shift her stance, placing herself slightly nearer to her mom. That tiny movement told me exactly whose side she expected to defend. "Can you drive me later?" Emily asked, almost too casually. "Practice runs late today." Her fingers twisted the edge of her sleeve. "I might be stuck there for a while." She risked a quick glance at me. "Text me the time," her mother answered, voice suddenly gentle and warm. She reached out, squeezed Emily's shoulder, and that warmth was not for me. Once they left, I reopened the laptop and went right back in. If I am honest, I was already addicted to the hunt. I checked dates, times, mapped them against everything she told me. Every supposed late meeting, every traffic was awful excuse, every headache. The pattern lined up too cleanly for coincidence, and I hated that. I called the rideshare number from my own phone just to see. A recorded message confirmed the company, nothing more helpful. I stared at the hotel entries again, fighting the urge to drive there. Part of me wanted to storm the lobby with printouts in hand. Another part whispered that I needed proof first, undeniable and brutal. My chance came 3 days later during another late office night. She grabbed her keys, checked her phone, and kissed my cheek quickly. "Don't wait up," she tossed over her shoulder on the way out. I watched her step outside, then listened for the engine in the driveway. As soon as it faded, I walked straight up to Emily's door. I knocked once, firm enough that she could not pretend not to hear. There was a rustle, then silence, then a longer shuffle toward the entrance. She opened up halfway, eyes guarded, mouth pressed into a line. "You need something?" Her voice was tired, like we had fought all night. I stepped into the doorway before she could close the gap again. "I know she is not at work," I started, no small talk this time. "I know because I checked the bills and the trip history." Her face drained of color, and she grabbed the handle tighter. "She told you that?" she asked, voice smaller, like a much younger kid. "No," I answered, "numbers told me that, and they are not biased." She swallowed hard, throat moving like she had swallowed a stone. "You shouldn't be spying on her," she whispered, eyes shining with anger. "That's messed up, you know that, right?" Her hands trembled slightly. That hit me because on some level I agreed it was messed up. Just not in the way she meant, and definitely not the worst thing happening. "I am not asking you to betray her," I tried, even though I was. "I am asking if you feel safe with whatever she is doing." That word landed because she flinched like I had shoved her. She looked past me down the hall, like checking if we were alone. "I'm fine," she insisted, the least convincing statement I have ever heard. "You covered for her the other night," I pushed, softer this time. "You jumped in before I finished my question, like you rehearsed it." Her jaw clenched, and she stared at the wall over my shoulder. "She told me you would start doing this," she muttered, voice shaking. "That you would twist everything and make her look like the bad one." That line almost knocked me back physically, that she anticipated my moves. "Twist what exactly?" I asked, keeping my tone even through pure effort. "What do you think I am making up here?" My hands stayed at my sides. Emily's eyes filled, not just with tears but with stubborn loyalty. "She's allowed to have a life without you tracking every second," she answered. I should have walked away right there, but I pushed again. "Is her life at that hotel 3 times a week?" I said. Her lips parted, and for a heartbeat I thought she would finally spill. Instead she squeezed her eyes shut like that could erase my question. "She's going through stuff," she finally murmured, "and you're not helping." There it was, the wall, solid and high, with her firmly on the other side. I realized I would get nothing from her but defense and deflection. "Okay," I exhaled, stepping back from the doorway slowly. "If something feels wrong or dangerous, you tell me no matter what." She nodded once, but the look on her face said she already chose. I walked back downstairs, every step heavier than the last. My phone buzzed with some random notification, and I barely glanced. All I could picture was my wife in some hallway, laughing at something private. I also saw Emily standing like a guard in that doorway upstairs. That night, I promised myself the next move would not involve any of them. I pulled into the hotel lot 2 rows behind her car. My fingers dug into the steering wheel, sweat slick under my palms. I had tailed her from our driveway, staying back just enough. Every turn she took matched the rides from those statements. When she parked under the big hotel sign, my last excuse died. She sat in her car for a moment, staring at her phone. I watched her shoulders lift once, then drop like she made a choice. Then she stepped out, locked the door, and checked the screen again. No hesitation, no confusion, just a quick smile at whatever she read. Watching that, I knew this was routine, not some first-time mistake. I killed my engine and slid lower in my seat. My heart hammered so hard I felt it in my neck. You ever be so sure you are right and still hope you are not? That was me, crouched behind my own dashboard like a coward. I told myself I needed to see his face to be certain. She headed toward the side entrance, not the main one. Her stride was relaxed, almost bouncy, like she was going somewhere fun. A guy stepped out from behind a column near the doorway. He waved once, then opened his arms like this was a reunion. She walked straight into that hug while I watched from the car. I gripped the door handle, almost tore it clean off. Every nerve screamed at me to jump out and start yelling. Instead, I sat there another 5 seconds, frozen and furious. He kissed her like it was the most normal thing on earth. She kissed him back like she had done it 100 times. That was my switch point. I got out and slammed my door hard enough to echo. They both jerked around at the noise, eyes going wide. Her hand flew to her mouth, his dropped to his side. My footsteps across the asphalt sounded way too calm for how I felt. Well, I called out, voice rough, the office looks different tonight. She stepped in front of him like a shield, one hand raised. Daniel, we can talk about this somewhere else, her voice shook. We are not doing this here, her eyes darted around the lot. She was more worried about witnesses than the fact she got caught. The guy looked between us, then straightened his jacket. I should go inside, he muttered, already angling toward the door. You're not going anywhere yet, I moved closer, blocking his path. I want to know how long you two have been playing me. He froze, jaw tight, finally realizing how ugly this could get. This isn't his fault, she snapped, grabbing my arm hard. You want to yell at someone, yell at me, not him. That line almost made me laugh, it was so backwards. I shook her hand off, staring at both of them like strangers. How generous, I said, you cheating and still trying to manage me. People were starting to glance over from their cars and the entrance. You know, that quick head turn, then the longer second look. She clocked the attention and stepped closer, lowering her voice. If you care about our family at all, you will calm down. Hearing her pull the word family right then almost broke my self-control. Our family, I repeated, keeping my tone low but cutting. The one you sneak away from for hotel dates. Her lips trembled, then flattened into something harder. You have no idea what has been going on with me, she said. That line told me everything and nothing in the same breath. I turned to him, forcing my eyes to focus on his face. Does your wife know, I asked, or is she at home too? He flinched, which gave me my answer faster than any words. This is between you two, he mumbled, taking another step back. Coward, I thought, even while knowing I had sat hiding in my car. She stepped between us again, palm flat on my chest. Stop it, you're not punching anyone, she warned. Her hand was shaking but her stance stayed firm. That would be real convenient for you, right? I answered. Get me arrested and you walk away with your boyfriend. I am going home, she said, voice suddenly flat and focused. We will discuss this like adults away from this place. She turned to him once more, eyes softer, almost apologetic. Go inside, I'll call you later, she told him, ignoring me completely. That last sentence sliced through whatever hope I had left. You're calling him later, I echoed, stunned by the arrogance. She winced, realizing too late that I heard every word. I didn't mean it like that, she added quickly. Then how did you mean it? I asked, stepping closer. She had no answer, just silence and that guilty, cornered stare. Her phone buzzed in her hand, breaking the moment. She glanced down and her face twisted with fresh panic. Who is that? I demanded, watching her thumb hover. Work, she insisted, even as her eyes flicked sideways. I snatched the phone before she could unlock it again. On the screen, the banner notification was still visible. Are you with him or on your way home? It read. No name, just a number I recognized from the records. I held the phone up between us like a piece of evidence. Work asks you that now? I asked, from a hotel parking lot. She reached for the phone, nails digging into my wrist. Give it back, she hissed, voice low enough only I heard. You are making a scene, and this will blow back on Emily. That was the first time her name entered the conversation. Hearing it, there made my anger shift into something colder. How does this hit her? I asked, still clutching the device. Because you dragged her into your secret, that's how. Her eyes widened for a second, then narrowed again fast. You leave her out of this, she warned, pointing one finger. She has nothing to do with what happens between us. That was the biggest lie so far, and we both knew it. She lies for you, I shot back. That means she is involved. A car door slammed somewhere behind us, brief distraction. I almost turned, then forced my focus back on her and the phone. Even then, some part of me felt a new presence at the edge. Can we please go home? She begged, voice dropping softer. Do this there, away from strangers and cameras. I followed her stare to the security domes along the walls. For once, I was grateful for something this place had installed. If I lost it, at least there would be a record of who started what. My resolve broke in a strange direction. Fine, I said, tucking the phone into my pocket. We are going home, but this, I nodded toward the building, is done. She opened her mouth like she wanted to argue that last part. Before she could release a sound, I heard a familiar voice. Behind me. Mom. I spun around and saw Emily halfway across the lot. She stood there clutching her backpack, face pale and set. Her eyes bounced from me to her mother to the hotel sign. She looked like someone walking into a scene she already knew by heart. What are you doing here? I asked, stunned and thrown off balance. She hugged the straps tighter, taking a small step forward. I tracked her, she answered, not looking at me. Her gaze locked on her mother, full of something complicated. This was taking too long, and I knew you would follow. That admission knocked the breath out of me more than the cheating. You knew where she was going, I managed, voice rough and hoarse. Emily's jaw flexed, but she did not look guilty, just resigned. I knew where she has been going, she corrected, eyes burning. That tiny correction told me this was not her first time here. My wife looked like someone watching a tower collapse in slow motion. Emily, go wait in the car, she ordered, voice sharp and trembling. No, Emily did not move, feet planted, shoulders squared. You told me he would never find out, she threw at her. You made me keep my mouth shut while you did this. Hearing that broke something loose inside my chest. How long have you known? I asked, turning back to Emily. She finally looked at me, expression tight and stubborn. Long enough, she answered, which hurt more than any number. Her eyes did not fill this time, they stayed fierce and dry. You could have come to me, I said, taking a small step closer. I would have listened, I would have believed you. She laughed once, a short bitter sound that did not fit her age. You only ever believe her, she snapped like that was obvious. That's what she told me, and I was stupid enough to trust it. My wife reached for her again, fingers brushing her sleeve. Stop, she pleaded, desperation finally cracking through. We talked about this, remember, we agreed how to handle it. That sentence felt like a knife right in front of my face. They had a plan, a shared plan, and I had been the target. Emily pulled away from her touch and took my side instinctively. Not emotionally, physically, she stepped nearer to me than to her. For a second hope flared, like maybe she was switching sides. Then she faced me full on, words lined up and ready. I am mad at her, she said, but I am also mad at you. My head spun from the whiplash of that. What did I do? I asked, genuinely thrown off. You ignored every sign until you needed me to confirm it. She shook her head, backpack shifting against her shoulders. Now you want truth, but only because your pride got hit. That stung in a different way, because there was some accuracy there. I had waited, stewed, snooped, hoping to avoid direct conflict. Now I stood in a parking lot with both of them and a stranger. Each of them holding pieces of a story I thought I was living right. And my so-called daughter looked at me like I was part of the problem. Enough, my wife hissed, glancing around like the walls had ears. We are leaving, and this conversation continues at home, not here. Emily's eyes met mine one more time, steady and almost cold. In that stare I understood something ugly and clear. She had carried this secret for her mother, not for me, and she did not regret that choice. I opened the family laptop to look up divorce lawyers. That was the plan, at least, until the chat window popped up. Her messaging app launched on its own with a little alert. Emily had stayed logged in, her name glowing in the corner. I stared at that tiny circle like it was ticking. I told myself to close it and mind my own business. Then another notification slid across the screen from some group chat. The preview showed my name, not in a way I liked. "Just make sure he buys the story," flashed before it disappeared. My finger moved before my conscience did, and I clicked it. The chat opened on a wall of texts and emojis. I scrolled back a few lines, trying to breathe slowly and evenly. Emily had written, "He's freaking out but still thinks she's just stressed." Someone answered, "You're doing him a favor, trust me." Another replied, "Milk it, girl, get something out of this." I felt my ears get hot before anything else reacted. I scrolled higher, needing context, hating that I wanted more. Emily again, "He keeps asking questions, I tell her what to say." She had added a laughing emoji and a rolling eyes face. Under that, "He's so literal, he believes whatever you repeat twice." That line landed like a solid punch to the chest. Literal. She used that word like I was some slow machine. I leaned closer to the screen, reading every letter twice. Part of me hoped I was misunderstanding the tone somehow. More older messages loaded as I dragged the bar upward. Dates from weeks back, maybe even longer, I lost track. "Mom's going out again tonight," one of Emily's texts. "Read." She told him it's a work dinner, same old thing. A friend answered, "And he just sits there, lol, bless his heart." I gripped the edge of the table until my knuckles ached. I know I should not care what teenagers type to each other. But these were my nights they turned into entertainment. These were my doubts they used as punchlines in a chat. Seeing it written, casual and smug, made my stomach twist harder. "Sometimes I feel bad," Emily had written in one message. Then I remember he married the woman who lied to everyone. Her friend sent back, "She's your mom, you ride with your mom." Another message followed, "Anyway, he's not dangerous, just gullible." That last word stung more than the rest combined. Gullible. I never thought that label would come from her. I scrolled further, fingers numb, eyes burning from the strain. An older exchange caught me, the day I first questioned the bills. "I think he checked the account," Emily wrote. "She needs a backup story." My heart thumped so loud I almost did not hear myself breathe. "Tell her to use the project excuse," one friend suggested. "She used that on my stepdad, worked for months," they added. Emily replied, "Already done, I told her he feels guilty about money." They sent back clapping emojis like it was some strategy game. I remembered that conversation the night she called me controlling. She had used almost the same words, same angle, same tone. Reading it now, I saw the blueprint hidden underneath. They had rehearsed how to push my weak spots in advance. I felt stupid in a very specific, heavy way. You ever realize a fight you thought was spontaneous was scripted? That was the feeling chewing through my chest at that moment. I kept scrolling because I could not stop hurting myself. "Just agree with him a little," Emily had written on another day. "He relaxes when you pretend he's right, then you get what you want." There were other chats too, private threads with different people. One name I recognized from her school, someone she trusted obviously. She had written, "We were at the hotel again, he still has no clue." I watched him kiss her in the car, then went home. My hands shook so bad I had to lift them off the keys. "He's actually sweet sometimes," she had told that friend. "Which is why I feel like trash, but I'm not blowing up her life." The reply came fast, "It's not your place, stay out of it." Emily wrote, "Exactly, let them deal with their mess as adults." Meanwhile, I was at home cooking, thinking we were a team. I know she was a kid, and kids protect the parent they fear losing. I get that now more than I did sitting at that desk. But the next part went way past fear and straight into cruel. "Plus he pays for everything," she added, "so I'm not complaining. Let him be confused, it's kind of his job." That sentence made my vision blur around the edges. I had signed up to be the guy in the background apparently. The one who worked, paid, kept things stable, stayed in the dark. It was like reading a job description I never agreed to. Only now I was seeing how they graded my performance. Another alert blinked in the corner as I scrolled higher. New message dropping into the same group chat live. My chest tightened while the bubble showed typing for a second. Then Emily's fresh words appeared right in front of me. "He cornered them at the hotel tonight, it was a mess." My pulse jumped because this was not old history anymore. This was right after the parking area disaster. Did he swing on him? Someone asked, circling the drama. Nah, she answered, he just did that disappointed dad thing. I actually flinched at the phrase, reading it in real time. Honestly, I thought he would punch somebody, she added quickly. He just stared like his brain glitched, it was awkward. They answered with a string of laughing faces and popcorn gifs. Bet he cries later, one friend wrote like it was entertainment. The worst part was they were not entirely wrong about that. I nearly closed the lid right then and walked away. I did not though. I scrolled a little more, almost on autopilot. Now he's playing detective at home again, Emily continued. He keeps asking me if I'm okay like I'm the victim. Reading my concern framed as some annoying habit hurt more than expected. You are the one stuck in the middle, someone replied. Use it, make them both feel guilty, get extra stuff. She answered, already on it, I might get a car out of this. That casual sentence made something inside me go very cold. I realized I had no clue who I had been raising. Another thread opened when I clicked her direct messages. This one was with my wife, long list of short texts exchanged. Tell him traffic is insane, my wife had written one evening. I am running late again, cover if he starts asking. Emily answered, got it, I'll say you called from the office. You know, that sensation when a memory replays in your head differently. Like someone adds subtitles you never saw at the time. I remembered that exact night very clearly, the way she walked in. She had told me Mom called, she is stuck at her desk. I had believed every word because I wanted to. Further down, there was more of the same coordination. Did he check the bank thing yet? My wife texted one day. Not yet, Emily responded, but he looked at the mail for a while. Keep him calm, came the reply, I can't deal with drama tonight. Emily wrote, I'll distract him if he starts, don't worry. Distract him. I watched those two words pulse in my head like a warning. How many conversations had been designed to steer me away from questions? How many times had she sat between us on purpose? I thought she just wanted attention, turns out she was running interference. I scrolled until my wrist hurt, and the pattern only got worse. If he asks where I am, say I went in early, from her mom. You owe me for this, Emily answered, he's starting to notice. I know, my wife wrote, I'll make it up to you, promise. My stomach turned at the idea of cheating being something to bargain around. One screenshot jumped out, time-stamped on a weekend afternoon. Do you think he will leave if he finds out? Emily had asked. My wife replied, not if you stay on my side through this. Then he loves you too much to walk, landed like a clean hit. I sat back in the chair, that line echoing in a sick loop. So that was my role. I was leverage stability, the guy who would not abandon the kid. They used my attachment as insurance while they lied freely. I am not proud of it, but I covered my mouth to keep from yelling. There was no one in the room, but it still felt too loud. At some point I realized my eyes had dried out. No tears, just a burned-out sting and this heavy buzz in my head. Another new message flashed in the corner while I stared. Emily was still dumping thoughts into that group in real time. She thinks I'm still on her side, she typed, but I'm just over it. That one froze me differently. There was a tiny crack in the loyalty I thought was unbreakable. Tell him then, one of them urged, like it was simple. Blow it up, go live with your dad if you have to. She responded, we're locked in now, it's too far gone. Too far gone. She knew the situation was rotten and still chose silence. I am not saying it was all on her, she was young. But she was old enough to write full paragraphs mocking me. Old enough to understand this was not some harmless prank. Another chat window sat open in the bar, different name. I clicked it with that same sick curiosity burning in my chest. Here she was talking to someone about me directly, not her mom. He tries so hard to be involved, she wrote, it's kind of pathetic. He keeps asking for movie nights like that fixes anything. I felt my throat close up a little at that part. Those were the nights I had thought were connecting us. Sometimes she would agree, sit there scrolling while we watched. Sometimes she would roll her eyes and stay in her room. I never knew she was also live blogging my attempts somewhere else. Why stay there if you hate him so much? Her friend asked. I don't hate him, she answered, which weirdly hurt more. I just don't see him as real family. He's like this extra adult I have to manage. That description cut cleaner than any insult could have. I do not know how long I sat reading and rereading those lines. Time got weird, stretchy, every minute pressing down on my chest. Messages blurred together until one more detail jumped out. We practiced answers before dinner, she had written one evening. So he would stop grilling her. It worked. Practiced answers. I pictured them in the kitchen while I was at work, running through potential questions like some twisted rehearsal, playing my suspicion like a quiz they wanted to pass. The thought made my hands go completely numb for a second. At some point, anger finally edged out the numbness. I opened the screenshot tool with almost robotic focus. If I closed the laptop now, I knew they would wipe everything. Click, drag, save, repeat, each capture landing like a small explosion. I went through every damning thread I could find, line by line. I am not proud of that part either, by the way. There is something gross about preserving your own humiliation. But I knew they would twist the story when cornered. I needed something I could hold up when they started denying. Something that did not depend on my memory or their moods. The printer roared to life beside the desk, too loud. It spat out page after page, each one dense with text. Emily's words. My wife's replies. Laughing responses from strangers who had watched my life like a show. I stacked the papers with shaking hands, trying not to rip them. On one page near the bottom, another. He grabbed me. I feel bad sometimes, Emily had typed again, different day. But he never asks questions until it's already obvious. Part of me thinks he wants to stay blind. That one knocked the defensiveness right out of me. Because there was a piece of truth buried in that attack. I had ignored strange details for a long time because peace felt easier. If I asked fewer questions, the house stayed quiet, or so I thought. Reading it from her hurt, but I could not pretend she was entirely wrong. Pages kept dropping into the tray while I stared at that sentence. My head pounded, but my thoughts were crystal sharp. They saw my silence and hesitation as weakness, not patience. They built their entire system on the assumption I would not leave. I realized right then that this assumption was the only power I had left. Upstairs, a door clicked and footsteps crossed the ceiling. I froze, listening, holding the stack of printed chats in both hands. Emily's music came on, loud enough to cover everything else. She had no idea what I was holding a few feet below her. That gap between floors felt massive and paper-thin at the same time. I slid the pages into a folder, every movement stiff and deliberate. My pulse pounded in my ears while I planned what came next. There was no version of this where we all hugged and moved past it. Something fundamental between us had snapped the moment I read, not real family. I knew, even before the confrontation, that our relationship had crossed a line I could not walk back from. I dropped the thick folder on the kitchen table so hard it bounced. Pages slid out and fanned across the surface like they were trying to escape. Upstairs, her music thumped through the ceiling, and my heart tried to match it. I stood there a second, then called her name once. She did not answer, and that silence pushed me forward. I walked to the bottom of the stairs and raised my voice. Downstairs now, both of you, my throat felt scraped raw. No explanation, no warm tone, just those words hanging in the hallway. I heard one door open slowly, then another click behind it. Footsteps started, hesitant and uneven, like they already knew. She came into view first, hair damp and eyes narrowed. Emily followed behind her, shoulders tense, backpack still hanging. They both saw the folder on the table at the same time. My wife stopped short and Emily bumped into her back. For a second they looked like one person caught under a spotlight. What's this supposed to be? She did not sit, she hovered. Evidence. I pulled out a chair and stayed standing beside it. Go ahead, I added, recognize anything before I start reading. Emily's gaze locked on the stack and her face went pale. She did not reach for a page, she just froze. My wife grabbed the top sheet with quick jerky movements. Her eyes scanned the lines and I watched the color drain. It was one of the group chats, the one with jokes about me. Her mouth tightened as she reached the part about the car. She dropped that sheet like it burned and grabbed another. These are private, she snapped, voice climbing too high. You dug through her messages, do you even hear yourself? Yeah, I answered, I hear myself and I hear you too. I flipped to a page with their direct thread and slid it over. Read the part where you ask her to cover your lies. Emily's breathing picked up, shallow and quick against the hum. She stared at her mother's hands, not at the print. My wife skimmed a few lines and her jaw clenched hard. That is between me and my daughter, she threw at me. That does not give you the right to spy on her. It stops being just between you two, I said, steady now. When the two of you coordinate how to mislead me. I tapped the sheet with my finger right on their plan. Tell him traffic is crazy, keep him relaxed, remember. She flinched at her own words, staring back at her. Emily finally moved, reaching for a different page quickly. Her hands shook so much the paper rustled against the table. She pulled up one of her own chats with friends. I watched her eyes race down the text about the hotel. Her lips parted when she hit the line about using me. You printed all of this, her voice came out hoarse. Every stupid thing I typed when I was angry or scared. You typed those when you were mocking me, I answered. Angry I could handle, scared I could handle, this is different. I pointed at the line about me being just another adult to manage. She dragged her thumb over the sentence like she could erase it. I did not think you would ever see that, she whispered. I almost laughed at how small that sounded in that moment. You are right, I told her, I was not supposed to see anything. That was the entire point, right? Keep me out of reality. My wife snapped the folder shut with both hands. This is going nowhere, she muttered, turning like she might leave. We already talked at the hotel, you know what happened. We talked about you cheating, I corrected, not about this part. I pulled the folder back open and spread the pages wider. This is about you turning her into your lookout, I continued. About you teaching her how to deceive someone who feeds her. My voice shook on that last phrase and I hated it. Emily winced but still kept her eyes on the printed lines. My wife crossed her arms again like that could shield her. You are blowing this way out of proportion, she leaned back. She was trying to keep the peace, that is all this is. I took a slow breath because that sentence almost made me snap. Keeping the peace, I repeated, by laughing about me with strangers. I lifted another sheet, the one with the line about me crying later. I read that message out loud, every word clear and slow. She thinks I am soft and ridiculous, you know that now. She was venting, my wife cut in, voice sharp and defensive. Teenagers vent, they complain, they say cruel things sometimes. I turned to Emily instead of answering that excuse. Do you feel like I am just some guy in your way? I kept my tone low, not gentle but not screaming. She gripped the back of the chair so tight her knuckles whitened. I did not mean half of that, she managed, eyes shining. Then tell me which half, I asked and let it sit. Her mouth opened and closed without a sound for a few seconds. I was scared, she started, grabbing that word like a rope. I thought if I told you, everything would catch fire. So instead you let me walk around clueless while you helped her, I answered. I felt my own voice go cold in a way that scared me. I did not help her, she protested, shoulders jerking upward. I just did not stop her, that is not the same. It is close enough when you run interference, I replied. You lied straight to my face about those nights. Her eyes filled and spilled finally. I thought you would kick us out, she choked. If you knew, I thought you would just throw us away. My chest twisted because that part hurt even while it angered me. So you kept me in the dark and let me fund everything, I said. That felt safer than letting me decide with all the information. My wife stepped closer to her like she could shield her. This is exactly why she did not come to you, she argued. Listen to yourself, you sound like a prosecutor, not family. That line is funny coming from you, I shot back. You put her on the stand years before I did. I never forced her to do anything, she threw that out fast. She offered to help, she wanted to keep things normal. Emily flinched at that, and that tiny reaction told the truth. You told me if I said something you would lose everything, she muttered. And that it would be my fault when you ended up alone. There it was, spoken out loud, the emotional blackmail laid bare. I stared at my wife and saw no shock on her face. She looked annoyed more than guilty, like Emily had broken a rule. This is not the way to handle this, my wife insisted. You are hurting her more than you are hurting me. I am not trying to hurt her, I answered, and it felt half true. I am trying to put reality on the table finally. I tapped the printed pages again with 2 fingers, steady now. This is who you both chose to be when you thought I would never look. That is what I have to respond to, not some story you tell tonight. Emily wiped her cheeks with the heel of her hand. I know I messed up, she said, voice cracking on the words. I should have told you, I should have done something. For a second that sounded like the start of a real apology. Then she added, but you checked my stuff, so I do not know who is worse. That hit a different nerve, the one that knew she had a point. I did invade your privacy, I said, not looking away. And I will not pretend I am proud of that either. I drew in another breath, slow and heavy in my chest. The difference is I was trying to uncover harm, not hide it. She hugged herself and looked at the floor again. I did not want to pick sides, she whispered. You already picked one, I answered, softer but still firm. You picked it every time you covered for her, understand? That was a choice, even if she pushed you into it. My wife stepped fully between us now, as if there was danger. You are not putting this all on her shoulders, she warned. This is my failure, not hers. She is a child. She is old enough to run strategies, I countered with a tight laugh. She is old enough to call me pathetic in full sentences. Emily flinched again at that word, and I regretted saying it out loud. She deserved to feel it, I still regretted it. This is what I mean about not being the hero here. I was bleeding and I wanted everyone else to feel it too. That is not noble, that is just human. So what now, my wife asked, arms crossed like armor. You drag us through. If court you blow up everything, then what? Her tone made it sound like I was the one who detonated the house. Now, I said, I make something very clear to both of you. Because staying in this half-life is slowly killing me. I gathered the pages into a rough stack and straightened them. The marriage is done, I said, and my voice did not shake. You already knew that at the hotel, I am just repeating it. My wife's chin lifted but her eyes blinked fast. She opened her mouth, then closed it without fighting that part. I will talk to a lawyer about the legal stuff, I continued. Where we live, what happens to the house, all of that. That part will be cold and formal and probably ugly. The real weight sat in the next part I had to say. The part I had been rehearsing silently since I read those chats. I turned toward Emily fully, and she stiffened like she saw it coming. You are not my responsibility anymore, I told her. The words tasted like metal leaving my mouth. Her eyes went wide and she took a small step backward. What does that even mean? She asked, panic rising. It means I am done acting like your father, I said. I am done holding that role while you treat me like a mark. Her face crumpled and she shook her head hard. You cannot just say that and make it true, she cried. You have been here for years, that does not just vanish. I cannot change the past, I answered, and my voice finally cracked. I can change what I do from this point on. I felt tears gathering and I let them fall instead of hiding. From now on, she is your parent and I am just the ex, I said. No more pretending we are something we are clearly not. My wife stepped forward, fury flashing through her grief. You do not get to abandon her to punish me, she shouted. This is revenge, this is you trying to hurt me through her. That is rich coming from the one who used her as cover, I snapped. I am not abandoning a child, I am stepping away from a role you poisoned. I did not poison anything, she insisted, voice breaking at the edges. I made mistakes, I tried to juggle everything, I screwed up. She still loves you, she still needs you in her life. Emily sobbed at that, shoulders shaking, hands covering her face. Hearing those words hurt worse because a part of me wanted them. I wish I could say I softened there and changed my mind. That would make a cleaner story and maybe a kinder one. Instead, I thought about every message where I was a joke. Every time she had the chance to pull me aside and chose not to. The pity inside me lost that fight to the fracture in my chest. I will cover what the court orders, I said finally. Child support, whatever a judge decides, that will get paid. I am not cutting off what the law says I owe financially. I saw a flicker of relief cross my wife's face at that. Then I dropped the second half and watched it disappear. But the extra stuff is gone, I continued, keeping my tone even. College funds, car money, trips, all of that was from me. I was saving because I thought I was raising my kid. That belief died when I read you calling me not real family. Her knees buckled a little, and she grabbed the back of the chair. So that's it, Emily gasped, wiping at her eyes desperately. One mistake and you throw everything away just like that. It was not one mistake, I answered, feeling anger rise again. It was months of teamwork behind my back, you know that. You did not just freeze, you participated, there is a difference. I was scared, she repeated, almost chanting it now. I was scared, I was trying to protect what I had. I hear that, I said, and I still have to protect myself. Do you get that part at all, or am I just background again? She closed her eyes like my words were physical hits. My wife moved closer to her, placing a hand between her shoulder blades. If you walk out on her now, you are no better than her father, she spat. That man walked out and left us to fend for ourselves. I stared at her, stunned she dared to use that comparison here. You do not get to weaponize someone else's absence after this, I said. I showed up, I went on, voice low and shaking. I paid, I drove, I showed up for events and boring nights. And when everything got complicated, you did not trust me with reality. You trusted teenagers in a chat more than the person paying the bills. That is the choice I am answering, not some imaginary version. Emily dropped heavily into a chair, sobbing into her hands. I hate you, she spat into her palms, voice muffled and broken. Maybe, I answered, and I felt something tear when I said it. Maybe you do, and maybe you always kind of did. I am done begging for a place in a heart that never let me in. That sounds harsh now, reading it back in my head. In that moment it felt like the only honest thing I had. I had spent years trying to be gentle, and patient and steady, and the whole time they saw me as a problem to manage. Stepping away felt less like cruelty and more like finally believing them. I will stay in the guest room until I find somewhere else, I said. I am not sleeping in that bed again, not next to you. My wife's mouth trembled and she gripped the table edge. So that's decided already, she whispered, eyes shiny and furious. It was decided at that hotel, I answered, this is just paperwork. I gathered the scattered pages back into the folder slowly. Neither of them tried to stop me or take them away. Emily just sat there crying, my wife just stood there shaking. I knew I would replay this scene in my head for years. I also knew I could not unsee a single word I had read. When I turned to leave the room, Emily spoke again. Are you ever going to talk to me after this? She asked. Her voice sounded small and older at the same time. I stopped in the doorway without turning around to face her. I do not know, I answered, and that uncertainty hurt us both. Right now I need space from both of you, I added quietly. I need to remember who I am without being the punchline. Silence settled behind me, thick and heavy and full of things unsaid. Then her chair scraped the floor as she stood too fast. Fine, she shouted, go then, that's what you're good at. That one hit me in a part of me she did not understand. I almost turned back, almost argued, almost tried to explain. Instead I walked down the hall toward the spare room. My legs felt heavy, but each step also felt horribly clear. I was not walking away from a daughter, I was walking away from a role that had never really been mine.